Cinema has always lived in a strange twilight between illusion and reality. On screen, we see stories that bend the rules of life and death, but off-screen, sometimes the shadows refuse to stay put. Certain productions carry reputations that go beyond what was filmed. They become infamous for the tragedies, accidents, and unexplainable coincidences that strike the people involved. Hollywood calls them cursed movies. Whether you believe in curses or not, the stories are hard to ignore. They are chilling reminders that the line between fiction and reality can blur in the most unsettling ways. The tale begins in the early 1970s with a film that redefined horror for a generation. The Exorcist was never meant to be an ordinary production. From the moment cameras started rolling, strange events seemed to stalk the set. A massive fire broke out, burning almost everything except the bedroom where the possession scenes were filmed. Actors were injured in ways that uncannily mirrored their characters. Linda Blair, who played the possessed girl Reagan, fractured her back when safety equipment failed. Ellen Burstyn, portraying her mother, suffered a serious spinal injury after being yanked backward in a scene. Her real scream of pain left in the final cut. As if physical injuries weren't enough, death soon followed. Jack McGowan, cast as the alcoholic director Burke Dennings, died of influenza before the film was released. Vasiliki Maliaros, who played an elderly character, passed away soon after filming wrapped. In total, 9 people associated with the film died during its production and release cycle. Then came the premiere in Rome, where lightning struck a church across the street from the theater. Inside, a man collapsed and died mid-screening. For audiences, the question became unavoidable. Had the story of demonic possession reached out of the screen and cursed those who dared bring it to life? The next story takes us to the suburbs of America, where a family's ordinary home becomes the battleground between the living and the dead. Poltergeist became one of the most iconic horror films of the 1980s, but it quickly earned a darker legacy. Dominique Dunne, the young actress who played the eldest daughter Dana, was murdered by her abusive boyfriend just months after the film's release. Heather O'Rourke, the cherubic child who uttered the chilling line, "They're here," died unexpectedly at only 12 years old due to complications from a misdiagnosed intestinal blockage. 2 other cast members met grim ends. Julian Beck, the gaunt actor who portrayed the terrifying Reverend Cain, died of stomach cancer, while Will Sampson, the Native American actor who played a shaman, died after a risky transplant surgery. Fans whispered that the curse began because the filmmakers had used real human skeletons in the infamous swimming pool scene, believing them cheaper than plastic replicas. Whether or not that detail sealed the fate of the cast, the Poltergeist trilogy is now inseparable from the tragedies that destroyed so many lives connected to it. Superman, the hero meant to symbolize hope and strength, has long carried a darker shadow off-screen. George Reeves, who played the Man of Steel in the 1950s television series, was found dead from a gunshot wound in 1959. Though it was ruled a suicide, questions lingered, with some suspecting foul play linked to his Hollywood connections. Decades later, Christopher Reeve became the definitive Superman of the silver screen, embodying everything audiences loved about the character. Then, in 1995, his life was altered forever by a horseback riding accident that left him paralyzed from the neck down. Reeve became a powerful advocate for disability rights, but he died at just 52 years old. His co-star, Margot Kidder, who played Lois Lane, faced a lifetime of battles with mental illness before her own tragic death. Richard Pryor, featured in Superman 3, descended into drug addiction and failing health. Over time, whispers of the Superman curse became unavoidable. A role meant to inspire millions had left devastation in its wake. Another film that seemed to invite disaster was The Omen. Released in 1976, it told the story of a boy who might be the Antichrist, and its production was stalked by events so chilling they read like publicity stunts. Except they were real. Gregory Peck, cast as the boy's adoptive father, was scheduled to board a flight to London that was struck by lightning. Weeks later, the producer's plane was also hit by lightning. During production, a zoo scene turned chaotic when baboons violently attacked the car carrying the actors, placing them in real danger. Special effects artist John Richardson later survived a car crash in which his passenger was decapitated in a manner eerily similar to a death he had designed for the film. Even aviation seemed to play along. A plane originally chartered for the crew was reassigned to civilians, who all died when it crashed shortly after takeoff. One coincidence might be ignored, but the string of near fatalities and deaths tied to The Omen created a legend that has never faded. The film about a cursed child became a cursed production itself. The Crow remains one of the most tragic cases in film history. Brandon Lee, son of Bruce Lee, was stepping into his breakthrough role as Eric Draven, a musician resurrected to avenge his murder. But the story of a man rising from the dead would take a horrifyingly literal turn. On set, a prop gun malfunctioned. A real bullet fragment lodged in the barrel was discharged, striking Lee in the abdomen. He died hours later at just 28 years old. His death seemed a cruel echo of his father's mysterious demise 2 decades earlier. The set itself had already been plagued by accidents. An electrician suffered severe burns, a crew member was injured by a falling object, and a hurricane destroyed parts of the production. After Lee's death, the film was completed using stand-ins and digital effects, but for audiences, the tragedy could never be separated from the final product. The Crow became less a movie and more a haunting memorial to the life cut short while making it. Roman Polanski's Rosemary's Baby has become a cornerstone of horror cinema, but its reputation is forever tied to one of the most infamous crimes of the 20th century. The film's composer, Krzysztof Komeda, died under bizarre circumstances shortly after the release, allegedly after suffering a head injury during a party game. Then came the murders. In 1969, Polanski's wife, Sharon Tate, and several friends were brutally killed by the Manson family. Tate was 8.5 months pregnant at the time. The brutality shocked the world and stained the film's legacy. Some pointed to eerie parallels. Rosemary's Baby is about a woman whose child is claimed by a satanic cult, and in real life, the director's unborn child was taken in an act of unspeakable violence. From that point on, Rosemary's Baby was whispered about as a cursed film. Whether you believe in curses or not, the overlap between fiction and reality in this case is impossible to dismiss. Twilight Zone. The movie was supposed to be a nostalgic tribute to a beloved television series. Instead, it became notorious for one of the most horrifying accidents in Hollywood history. During the filming of a sequence about a man traveling through time, actor Vic Morrow and 2 child actors were killed in a helicopter accident. A pyrotechnic explosion caused the helicopter to spin out of control, decapitating Morrow and one of the children and crushing the other. The incident led to a high-profile trial that shook the film industry and forced new safety regulations. Even beyond the tragedy, other accidents dogged the production. Crew members described the atmosphere as chaotic and careless, with corners cut to save time and money, though the deaths were ultimately ruled the result of negligence rather than supernatural forces. Twilight Zone. The movie carries the reputation of being cursed by sheer catastrophe. Rebel Without a Cause is remembered as James Dean's defining role, but the film is shadowed by the deaths of its young stars. Dean himself died in a car crash at just 24 years old before the film even premiered, cementing his status as a cultural icon of doomed youth. His co-star, Sal Mineo, was stabbed to death outside his apartment years later. Natalie Wood, the female lead, drowned under mysterious circumstances during a boat trip with her husband, Robert Wagner. 3 central actors, all lost in sudden, violent ways, left audiences unable to separate the film's themes of youthful rebellion and death from the reality faced by its cast. Rebel Without a Cause became more than a film. It became a symbol of Hollywood's fleeting brilliance and devastating fragility. Return to Oz, a 1985 sequel to the beloved Wizard of Oz, might not be as widely remembered, but the original 1939 classic carries its own tales of misfortune. Judy Garland, immortalized as Dorothy, suffered a life of exploitation, addiction, and early death at 47. The set itself was dangerous. The Tin Man's makeup nearly poisoned actor Buddy Ebsen, forcing him to abandon the role, and Margaret Hamilton, who played the Wicked Witch, suffered severe burns after a stunt went wrong. The Scarecrow actor Ray Bolger battled depression, while the Cowardly Lion, Bert Lahr, struggled with exhaustion and illness. Over the decades, countless tragedies seemed to circle the cast, leading many to speak of an Oz curse. What was meant to be a whimsical story of hope and magic was built on the suffering of its stars, and its legacy remains bittersweet. Finally, we come to Atuk, a film that was never even completed yet somehow built a reputation as one of the most cursed projects in Hollywood. Atuk was a comedy script adapted from a satirical novel about an Inuit man in New York City. Several actors attached to play the lead role died prematurely. John Belushi was first, dying of a drug overdose shortly after receiving the script. Sam Kinison, also briefly linked, died in a car crash. John Candy, another comedic legend, passed away unexpectedly before he could move forward with the role. Chris Farley reportedly showed interest before his own sudden death. Even Michael O'Donoghue, a writer connected to the project, died of a cerebral hemorrhage. The fact that so many comedians known for their oversized personalities and tragic ends circled this single unmade film only deepened its reputation. Atuk never reached the screen, but its curse became legend. These 10 films and projects represent the strangest corners of cinema history. Fires, lightning strikes, fatal accidents, murders, mysterious illnesses, and untimely deaths have woven themselves into the stories behind the stories. Skeptics dismiss them as coincidences, the inevitable tragedies of a dangerous industry. Believers argue that certain productions stir forces beyond comprehension. In either case, the fascination endures. Audiences are drawn not only to what happens in the movies, but to the eerie, sometimes horrifying tales that linger once the cameras stop rolling. The idea of cursed films endures because it offers a haunting possibility that stories do not just reflect life, but sometimes change it in ways no one intended. Comment, like, and subscribe for more cursed Hollywood stories and chilling mysteries.